Today's guest is the kind of operator every great business needs behind the scenes. Karl Newman is the founder of SKJ Consulting Group, a Brisbane-based firm helping business owners cut through the noise, get financially clear and build strategies that actually work. With a sharp focus on operational excellence, financial leadership and business turnaround. Karl is also known for rolling up his sleeves and partnering directly with companies to solve real problems, not just hand over a glossy report. In this episode, we'll discuss clarity, control, and how to scale with substance, not just hype. Karl Newman, welcome to the Founder Podcast.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Now, take us back to the beginning, Karl. What was the moment or turning point that led you to create SKJ Consulting Group?
Yeah, well, at the time I had a chance to step out of the existing role I was in. The plan was to spend more time with kids, not work for a little while. And the company I was working asked me to come back if I'd be interested, do a bit of consulting, a bit of contracting. And I had the option to do that during school hours, flexible. So I still got that quality time with the family. And from there was chatting to friends, to other contacts, and was asked if I'd be interested in helping other companies that needed better financial visibility, hands-on support to help them grow or turn their business. And it kind of started from there.
Now, the finance and business strategy spaces are pretty crowded. What was the gap that you saw, and how did you try and position yourself, I guess, differently to make a greater impact?
Well, I think initially starting out, we weren't looking to grow and have too many clients. It was just me at the time in the business. And so, yeah, it was just a couple of clients I was working with. But it was a time when many businesses struggled to get staff. There seemed to be a shortage of people. And just catching up with contacts in the finance industry, they had clients needed support. They didn't have capacity to step in and help from a hands-on perspective. So that was just where we saw that there was a chance to be part of that picture and to help people out.
Yeah. Just give us a little bit of a rundown. What exactly does the business do and who do you help?
Yeah, so largely we're doing outsourced CFO services. So that was how we started at least. So it's more around strategy, management reporting, helping people with budgets, forecasts, but understanding their numbers. A lot of clients that we found had no management reporting, or if they had reporting, it was coming late in the piece. It almost through the following month, so it was too late to really make any change from. And from there, I suppose we then developed a bit further where rather than just doing a strategy, you had clients that maybe had a bookkeeper, but they weren't completing the month-end processes. So we were able to kind of complement, sit in, work with them to help provide that service. And from a reporting perspective, we then started to automate dashboards. So we connect in through APIs to operational systems, finance systems. And owners can now get their information on a daily basis through an app, through their computer, so that they can really stay on top of where things are at.
Amazing.
So just as you've been talking, I've been pondering. So, in terms of, operations, obviously a lot of people struggle to go from that operational mindset to an actual strategy. So, how do you help your clients do that?
Yeah, I think even when we're working with clients, we're looking at some of the challenges that they've faced and we're having the discussions, we find that a lot of owners will say, we have this problem and I get in and I fix it. And the issue being that sometimes people don't manage to step away and let go of a little bit of control and delegate and hold people accountable. So they fix one problem and then move on to the next. And when they fix that one, the first one's fallen over because it all relies on them and they haven't changed the fundamental process. We often see that people are promoted to manager because they were the best at a particular job that they were doing, not because they were showing the leadership skills, or even if they were, there's been no communication around what that new role is, what the responsibilities are to either the person or the team. So it leaves a bit of a gap. So if we're working with a business, we'll kind of try and look at everything in terms of financials. How are they performing? The structure of the team, is it clear? Is it communicated? And if not, how can we help them to kind of define what that structure should look like and really drive the accountability?
What I'm curious about, what could be the one thing that you reckon most businesses get wrong in that financial clarity and forecasting for that matter that ends up really costing the business?
I think from what we've seen, there's a lack of value placed on finance or accounting at times. We're seen as being a cost, and I think everyone gets pigeonholed into one area of you're just looking at what we've spent, you're trying to stop us spending, but it can be a lot wider than that. So when we look at the numbers through people not having a complete process, we generally find between about 5 to 10% of costs aren't being recorded on a monthly basis, and they're using that to run their business. And that's without any large swings for timing differences and things that aren't being accounted for. And then you look on the flip side of that, if they're doing unit costings or they're trying to price, okay, how much are we going to charge for this job? They're using those same numbers to calculate and put a margin on, but you've already lost 10% of the margin straight away. So I think those aspects, plus the fact that a lot of people don't necessarily have any reporting, or if they do, you can't correlate it back to operational performance, and it's a bit of a head scratch in terms of where things are going. That's some of the gaps that we see and where we help. Yeah.
It's interesting you say that. My wife's an accountant, and like you pointed out, people think, like the sales guys, they're out there actually getting business, and you're just an overhead cost, and they, like you said, they quite minimise it, and it's not the smart thing to do to run a profitable business. So the numbers should be a big part of it, shouldn't it?
Oh, definitely, yeah, because I think it's, people are out there selling and people are out there producing. There's many aspects to the business, but it's really understanding the costs and the benefits of each of those divisions and how it's working, whether you can tie that back to the capacities that were planned or produced, and how does that tie in? I think a lot of the work we've done from when I was in commercial roles, even to when I'm in the business now, it's for me to make sure the numbers are accurate. You need to have certain KPIs, whether that be your margins you make on your product, whether it's an LNG plant, how much gas is being converted to LNG, yield rates and things like that. Once you've got something you can tie it back to, it all kind of then makes more sense, and that's where we try and help.
So not only do you need to do the reporting, but you need to do the reporting accurately.
Yeah, and you need to understand the business. It's and that's the key things to us. It's not just about, okay, here's the numbers, make sure they look right, but understanding, okay, what industry are we in, how does the business operate and function, and kind of use that to tie it back and go, okay, well, this looks right. Yep.
Can you share a moment? I'm just trying to ponder again. Can you share a moment with our listeners where things weren't working with either a client or yourself or whatever it may be? And how you navigated through this, season, if you will.
Yeah, I think one of the challenging ones for us was a client where, again, the CFO at the time had left the organisation, so we went in an interim basis to help run that. And there was another finance team underneath that were obviously reporting to us at the time. It was a highly compliant industry. There was a lot of staff around, but finance there was definitely an us and them culture. And it didn't even help that finance was sitting in a different building to the rest of the operations team, so you're even more of an outsider, and if anything didn't go wrong, it was their fault. And finance were also, taken on probably more tasks than they should have been doing, which then didn't reflect well when things didn't go right. And that was challenging, but to me it was more about kind of understanding, okay, what is the culture and why, and then kind of getting to know the divisional managers within the organisation to kind of form a bit of a relationship, pass some of the duties and responsibilities back so that the right people were accountable for what they were doing, as opposed to us potentially at times taking away that control that they had lost. And then working with the execs and the management team to go, hey, we need to relocate, we need to be in the same building so that we can actually start to grow this relationship further and make sure that we're all part of a team, as opposed to, and us and them, which just doesn't work.
So, yeah.
Can you talk us through, leadership is a big thing. I'm doing some leadership stuff in some schools at the moment, and the school's obviously very big in trying to building up future leaders. So how do you see that leadership in the businesses that you're working with? Is that something that can be improved, and how would you describe your own leadership style, and how have you seen that evolve since you've been in business?
Yeah, I think it definitely changes client to client and potentially industry, but I think client to client more so. There's definitely some good leaders within the organisations for sure, but it comes down sometimes to, I suppose, whether they've been empowered to actually use that leadership skill, and almost back to what we said at the beginning, it's kind of they're in a role and they are a leader, but they have not necessarily been given full authority, or it hasn't been communicated to the wider organisation to understand where they're at, and I think that's where sometimes some of the opportunity gets lost a little bit.
So SKJ Consulting Group takes on a very hands-on, relatable approach. Can you just share with us and all the listeners why that was so important to you, and why you aren't just providing high-level advice? Not that there's anything wrong with that, but what was your strategic decision around being so hands-on and relatable?
Well, I think for me, it's, I suppose, a bit of a point of difference sometimes to some in terms of what we do. I don't want to be seen as someone that's sitting in an office, remote, never out on site, don't know who we are, and just kind of saying you need to do this. It was more about kind of getting out, as I said, meeting clients, understanding the business, but the size of clients we work with ranges. Some of them quite small, some of them have quite large teams, but we generally find people are time poor. And sometimes they're time poor because a system or process needs to change. And then we make a recommendation that just feels like we're adding to the workload, whereas we had the option to say, look, this is what needs to be done. We recommend, and these will be the outcomes. If you're too busy, we can step in, we can help you complete that process, because they're then getting to the end goal a lot faster. And you can see that people are trying. It's just, how much time is there in a day? So it was just more of a supportive piece, and yes, something we enjoy doing.
Something a little bit left field that we brought up with our last guest, just in relation to mental health, and that's obviously become a huge problem across society. Is that something that you come across in helping any of your clients, that there's an issue with that, and that can be a cultural thing as well?
Yeah, I think mental health definitely becomes bigger and bigger in terms of challenges. I think companies are getting better low at supporting that as well. Like I've worked in some family-owned businesses, and there's managers, GMs that can spot it quite quickly and will kind of raise the flag a bit to go, okay, look, we need to get support, or there needs to be an EAP program in so that people can get their help. So I think there's obviously, depends again on the company, there's work to be done, but I think a lot of people are trying to support their employees in that, which is good.
Yeah, no, it's really good, and it's interesting. I was just curious because of the closeness that you work, because you're so collaborative with the businesses that you're working with, that you might even be able to pick up on some of that when you're having some of the discussions with the other leaders within the company.
Yeah, sometimes potentially based off what people are saying, but I think because as much as we're there, we're working with clients, and we're dealing with a lot of people, we're not there full time. And as we all know, it's easy to put on a face that you kind of may not be feeling it, but you can make it look like you're feeling well and hide point. That. So it's because sometimes, again, person to person is different, but being in the workplace could be taking them away from what was taking them to that poor mental state. So it's, whereas I think the people that are working with them daily do generally pick up on it, and there generally seems to be a good bond, and so they want to make sure that people are looked after. So.
Yeah.
So what's one client project, initiative, anything you want to frame under that sort of stands out for you, that really represents like the work that your company can do? So if someone's listening to this podcast, they want to work with you, give us a piece of work that you've done that sort of reflects that.
Yeah, well, we were referred into a client once where they were struggling financially in terms of ongoing performance as well as cash flow. So could we go in and have a look? And initially we were only going to be assisting with bookkeeping and financial accounting services. But on discussion, we kind of talked and said, okay, well, we need to be looking here in terms of strategy and where things are going so that this can turn around. Now, which we didn't realise at the time when I was appointed, that there was already an outsourced CFO working with them. They already had their own business coach that was working with them, but neither of them went to site. Definitely not regularly. I don't know if they'd been to site, but they had goals and targets they had to achieve each week, which just wasn't happening. So again, I went to site, met with a client, we were talking about different things, and their focus at the time was, okay, we want to see the graphs, we want to see the tables that you can produce. And I said, okay, we can get to that, but we want to understand the business, the pain points, what's going to add value. And as we were talking through in terms of where some of the opportunities were, it kind of came clear to us, and I said to them, we can give you all the graphs and the data you need, but the first things you need to fix is more the culture and kind of the team sizes, but also the safety, because we can go around and make a lot of financial changes, but if you've not got a safe organisation, it doesn't take too much for all the hard work you do to unravel. So it's whether that's safety, whether that's culture, whether that's insurance, cyber, many things can derail you. Now it's kind of, I suppose we look at that holistic approach and go, okay, well, where are some of the points? And what we identified there was the team was so misaligned that they couldn't complete the value of one part of the business at their target, which would then feed the rest of the business. But they probably had 3 times as many people they needed at the back end. And you have the discussion, you make it clear, and it's that really just pointing out what they already know. But it's kind of like, we need to act on this now, and then operations can improve, cash flow improves, and take it from there.
It's interesting you brought up the word culture, because in my experience and in previous businesses and even footy teams, culture is a huge thing, and it's not something that can get fixed very quickly, is it?
No, definitely not. And I think that's, again, why we like going to site, because you need to get a feel for the culture, the people, and how it's all operating, because you can have all the strategies, all the change of processes you like, but if the culture's kind of set that we're not changing, we're not getting on board, then you've got to navigate that before you can really get on to making that change. And it's and generally as well, a lot of people want to see the change, and so you get to see the positive side and the change of that culture as you go through. And don't get me wrong, some of the clients we work with have a great culture as well, already kind of in place, and it's good to be part of that, because again, they're positive, they want to see it happen. But yeah.
Let's talk about when things go wrong. What sort of mindset that happens? And I no doubt you'd be involved with businesses like that. Do you have a particular mindset that you take in that you can help and maybe share with our listeners on what to do when things go wrong?
Yeah, I think, again, working in commercial world before, I've worked with some great leaders myself in terms of, their approach was, mistakes are going to happen, things are going to go wrong, but one, you got to own it, and then two, we've got to learn from it. So it's same sort of process. It's not just kind of wash it under the carpet, hope no one sees it. It's, we made a mistake, or this went wrong. Why did it go wrong, and what can we do to kind of change that process? And I think largely, again, that's where we try and do a lot of our work in terms of be the reporting and the visibility. So we've got our targets, we know what we're trying to achieve. It's kind of measuring against that consistently. So if things aren't going to align to the target, we can kind of identify it early. And it's, do we need to change the strategy, or do we just need a bit of a realignment? It's and the hard part is we can all get headstrong, yeah. So it's kind of, it's not working, but you don't want to admit it, and it's knowing when to pull the pin and being that sounding board sometimes, which is can be the benefit.
Yeah. Ego can get in the way.
It can, and I think we're all guilty of that one at times, aren't we? So it's
So how do you stay sharp, mate? How do you keep those tools sharp? How do you, especially with this AI generation coming, anyway, just in general, for anyone who's listening to the podcast, how do you make sure that you stay up to date with, business trends and all that? What's your strategy? What do you do?
Well, we have a lot of partner companies that we work with through different aspects of the business. So we catch up with them regularly, but I think largely it's down to networking, whether it be networking events, lunches, just general catching up with the partners that we work with to understand what's happening in their world and their clients, how that correlates back to what we're seeing with ours. And yeah, that's probably the biggest way at the moment.
One of my business, I'm a huge advocate and enthusiast for health and wellness and fitness. Is that anything that comes into any of your client strategies, particularly with high level management, that they're able to stay healthy both physically and mentally?
I don't know that it's necessarily something that you see as kind of what's promoted through the workplace in terms of that aspect of it. You generally see there's quite a few people in there that are regularly going to the gym and staying fit and healthy, which is good, but it's the same for me. It's kind of, I know that at times you need to be out there exercising just to get that release, to get the focus back and things. And if you're not, you kind of get the frustration kicks in and you're thinking about that more than the task at hand. So it's I see it's an important factor as well.
Yeah, no, fantastic.
And what is to really help the listeners today, what is leading a purpose-led business that you founded? What does it mean to you?
For me, it's, I suppose, having a goal or a vision, and then really having a strategy to kind of achieve that, and then have the right people, the right culture to be able to kind of
execute it.
Yeah.
Maybe just elaborate on, for our listeners, so strategy. I've got a construction background, so your strategy is basically the plan, isn't it? Do you want to just explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, so I suppose, again, people will break it down different ways. Some people have a long-term strategy, a mid-term and a short-term, but yeah, what are we trying to achieve and how are we going to get there? It's almost your action plan sort of thing, but then also how you're going to measure against it. So yeah, these are the activities we're going to take, or steps we're going to take to achieve that goal and the strategy, and breaking it down more so that you can kind of go, okay, we're not achieving this, or hey, something needs to change here.
So you mentioned vision. What's the long-term vision for SKJ look like, and what sort of impact do you hope to have what sort of impact do you want to leave on the business world?
Yeah, for me, I want to continue to grow SKJ. I think we've got the two separate models now, where one is that we'll still provide the finance support and the strategy to companies, but really making sure that we're bringing more visibility and to clients as well. So through the reporting dashboards and things that we're creating, to, I suppose the goal for us is to, as many companies as we can help, kind of get that better visibility, better understanding of the key drivers, financial performance to help them succeed.
Fantastic. Anything that we haven't discussed today that we should discuss?
No, I don't think so. No, I think
I've got one item before we get into the quick fire questions, which I know you're very much looking forward to. Just look, we talked off camera about, think different, be different, act different. From the thinking, the being to the acting. For anyone looking to start a business out there, thinking about following their dreams, their passions, whatever, what's one piece of advice you'd give them?
I think whatever you decide to do, you've kind of got to be passionate about it. In terms of, you've also got to appreciate that, unless you're really lucky, it's not going to come easy. There's going to be some challenges ahead, but it's the risk reward, and kind of hard work pays off in the long term. And it's
well said, Karl. I think that all of us and everyone watching today can definitely resonate to that, and I think you'll inspire a lot of people with what you're doing. So thank you for coming on the show. I know Magnus is very much looking forward to this part of the show.
Yeah, just wanted to elaborate on what you just said, because it's so focused, because that vision, that's your why. And if you're doing it for somebody else's reason or somebody else's dream, when shit does get hard, you're going to give up. But if you've got that strength and that vision and your why is strong enough, then it's going to get you through that. And then, realise that it is not going to be easy. It's going to take longer than you think, and it's going to be harder than you think. But if your dream and your vision is strong and it's coming from deep inside, then the journey will 100% be worth it.
Also,
quick fire questions.
Here we go.
Oh, pressure.
Coffee or spreadsheet?
Coffee.
The one metric you want every business to know?
The most important to them to understand how business is going.
The biggest challenge you've faced as a founder?
Switching off.
Early start or late night hustle?
Yeah, late night hustle.
One book every entrepreneur should read?
Traction by Gina Wickman.
The most overrated business buzzword right now?
I think ducks in a row, probably for me.
Your personal definition of success?
Helping others achieve their goal and their vision.
What's your go-to method for clearing your head?
I'd probably go for a run, I think.
If you weren't in finance, what industry would you be building in?
I suppose we work across a lot of industries in finance, but I'd like to think probably something sporting or travel.
One piece of advice you wish you had when you started SKJ?
The importance of networking, and not just to sell there, but the connections you make from it. So,
what's something most people misunderstand about business consulting?
I think they just believe that a consultant is coming in to tell you what to do, walk out and come and check that it's going to be done, as opposed to somebody gets their hands dirty.
Last question. Finish this sentence. A great business is built on?
A good vision, a strategy, and then a great team and culture.
What a great way to finish. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Good on you, Karl. See ya.
Cheers. Thanks.